The crystalline halls of the Galactic Tribunal had witnessed the judgment of countless species across the galaxy. The Zephyrians had wept purple tears when condemned for their mining violations. The Vorthon Empire had prostrated themselves in elaborate surrender rituals. Even the proud Kethmaran warriors had shown proper submission when faced with the Tribunal's authority. But Captain Marcus Chen just laughed. The sound echoed through the vast chamber, bouncing off walls that had been carved from a single asteroid and embedded with neural amplifiers designed to project the weight of galactic justice into every corner. The 12 tribunal members, each representing a different stellar confederation, shifted uncomfortably in their biomechanical thrones. In 3,000 years of operation, no defendant had ever responded to their charges with mirth. You find your situation amusing, human? Supreme Arbiter Velnash's voice carried the authority of a being who had overseen the fates of entire civilizations. His elongated skull, typical of the ancient ethereal race, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that indicated severe displeasure. Marcus rattled his quantum-locked restraints, the chains humming with energy sufficient to contain a battle mech. Oh, I find it hilarious. You're charging me with reckless endangerment of galactic stability because I saved a planet. You violated the non-interference protocol, Arbiter Crixtel interjected, her mantis-like appendages clicking against her console. Primitive species are to be allowed natural development. Your actions on Kepler 442b constituted gross interference. Natural development? Marcus's grin widened. You mean letting the Devourers strip mine their world while they were still figuring out agriculture? Real natural. The humans' irreverence sent ripples of discomfort through the assembled arbiters. They had expected fear, perhaps anger, certainly some form of submission. The psychological profiles they'd constructed from studying other human defendants suggested that isolation and the threat of mind-wiping would break any Terran spirit within hours. Marcus Chen had been chained in their holding cells for 3 standard weeks. His laughter had only grown louder. The Kepler incident was merely the most recent violation, Supreme Arbiter Velnash continued, activating a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. For the past 15 years, Captain Chen, you have systematically ignored tribunal directives across 7 sectors. The Andorian smuggling route you disrupted. The hegemony mining operation you sabotaged. The slave markets on Rigel 7 that you liberated. Each accusation was punctuated by evidence, security footage of Marcus and his crew engaging in activities that, while technically criminal, had consistently aided oppressed populations or prevented ecological disasters. The tribunal had compiled an impressive case. Marcus watched the evidence play out with obvious pride. You missed the thing with the neural parasites on Centauri Prime. That was some of my best work. Arbiter Thekmore, whose species communicated primarily through chemical pheromones, released a scent that roughly translated to unprecedented audacity. Do you understand the position you are in, human? We have the authority to erase your consciousness entirely. We can rewrite your neural patterns until nothing of Marcus Chen remains. We can condemn your entire species to quarantine. Yeah, I heard the speech. Very impressive. Marcus leaned forward as much as his restraints allowed. Here's what I think you don't understand about humans. The chamber fell silent except for the low hum of the quantum chains. We're really bad at staying down. Marcus's eyes swept across the 12 arbiters, meeting each gaze without flinching. You want to know why I keep violating your precious protocols? Because they're wrong. Because sitting in comfortable chambers making rules about who gets to live and who gets to suffer is the coward's way out. Cowardice? Supreme Arbiter Velnash's bioluminescent patterns flared. We maintain order across— You maintain the status quo, Marcus interrupted. You let the strong prey on the weak as long as they follow proper procedure. You've turned morality into bureaucracy. Arbiter Zinthal, whose crystalline form had remained perfectly still throughout the proceedings, finally spoke. Her voice carried harmonics that could shatter most sentient beings' composure. Your species' tendency towards self-destructive heroism is well documented. We had hoped that isolation and the threat of consequences would cure you of this defect. Marcus threw back his head and laughed again, longer and louder than before. Defect? Lady, that's not a bug, that's a feature. You want to know what happens when you try to break a human? We double down. We get stubborn. We start looking for bigger things to punch. The quantum chains suddenly felt different against his wrists. Not weaker. If anything, they hummed with increased power. But Marcus had spent 3 weeks studying their resonance patterns, their energy signatures, their fail-safes. He'd spent 3 weeks letting the tribunal think they were breaking him, while he figured out how their supposedly unbreakable restraints worked. The thing about humans, Marcus continued conversationally, is that we have this weird relationship with impossible odds. Most species look at certain death and run. We look at certain death and start taking notes for next time. The first chain snapped with a sound like reality tearing. Alarms immediately flooded the chamber with strobing light and discordant noise. Security drones materialized from hidden compartments, their weapons charging. The Arbiter's throne platforms began rising toward emergency exits. Marcus stood up, brushing quantum residue from his uniform. You wanted to know why I keep violating your protocols? It's because someone has to. Someone has to look at suffering and say, not on my watch. Someone has to punch up instead of down. The security drones opened fire. Energy beams that could vaporize titanium struck Marcus' center mass and simply dissipated. The personal shield generator he'd been wearing beneath his uniform, a little gift from the grateful engineers on Kepler 442b, flared to life with impossible efficiency. See, the funny thing about helping people, Marcus said, walking calmly toward the chamber's main exit, while weapons fire rained harmlessly around him, is that sometimes they help you back. Supreme Arbiter Velnash's voice cracked with something approaching panic. Security breach. Initiate station lockdown. Deploy the neural scramblers. Oh, those won't work, Marcus called over his shoulder. My crew's been jamming your systems for the past hour. They should be docking right about... The entire station shuddered as something large and decidedly unauthorized attached itself to the tribunal's main hangar bay. Now. Marcus paused at the chamber's threshold and turned back to face the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy. Here's the thing you never understood about humans. We don't break. We bend until you think we're going to snap, and then we spring back and hit you in the face. He smiled one last time, not the manic grin of before, but something warmer and infinitely more dangerous. Thanks for the 3 weeks. I needed the vacation. Oh, and Velnash? Next time you want to threaten my species with quarantine, maybe don't do it while we're already inside your most secure facility. Marcus Chen walked out of the Galactic Tribunal a free man, leaving behind 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, staring at each other in stunned silence. In the distance, the sound of his laughter echoed through crystalline halls that had never heard such defiance. The tribunal tried to break him. The human laughed in chains, and in the end, the chains were the first to give way.